You're listening to the Modern Healthcare Back Office, a podcast dedicated to solving the billing issues and gridlock facing the healthcare industry, presented by ProChamp, hosted by Chuck Ellis and Rachel Schools.
Well, hey there, folks. Chuck here, and welcome back to the Modern Healthcare Back Office. I am joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Ms. Rachel Schools. How are you today, Rachel?
What's up, Chuck? I'm great.
Awesome. We are joined once again by our resident DME expert, Ms. Melissa Wagner. Melissa, how are you today?
I'm well. How about yourself?
I'm fantastic. It is a lovely day to be talking about DME and back office processes. Now, when we talked last, we talked a bit about a big 50,000 foot view of what the ideal HME, DME, back office setup looks like. And if you haven't heard that episode yet, please go back and listen to it because it had some really powerful information. And Rachel, you and I were talking about this before the show, and you had some more things that you wanted Melissa to expound upon more. So why don't you say
Yeah, I did. So I had something that I wanted to chat with Melissa about, something that's very near and dear to my heart. So as we've been talking about the modern healthcare back office, one of the things that we've talked about several times is automation and making use of technology to handle jobs that people used to handle and that we don't have time to get back to. So what I was hoping to really pick Melissa's brain about is something that has long driven Rachel Schools crazy, and it's paper in the office. So anytime that I've gone in anywhere, it doesn't matter, and my job is to improve revenue cycle, I always start with tracing the paper flow through the office. So Melissa, I'm wondering if that's ever hit your radar and if it's something that you find as important as I when it comes to getting things cleaned up.
Yes. So yes, I share the same disdain for the paper, and over some period of time of seeing the industry and the process, I should say, evolve, I'm sometimes surprised, even in the modern age of DME, that there are still providers, offices where the paper nemesis does still exist. And it really is the antithesis of workflow, work management, efficiency, accountability, measurability. And in past experiences, it's always been, okay, first let's figure out, what this is, because you can't measure, hold people accountable, count things to say in the old dating, it's an aesthetic, right?
Correct. You digitize your workflow.
Yeah. So I absolutely so hence workflow, hence managing what it is, how much it is, how efficiently it moves, how you hold people accountable, and they can't measure anything about it. So great. Totally something that leaders should be setting at the forefront, and a very simple opportunity, truthfully, a very simple opportunity to automate available tools within systems or commercial products to at least manage whatever these documents are.
Yeah.
Maybe talk a little bit about them once they're automated, along just replacing the paper with another process electronically, and then how do we turn that into something that's even more manageable? Because I think sometimes the doc management process in the stalling or electronic capture isn't always optimized either. It's
right.
Another repository of paper that's just not physical, but it still isn't always managed as efficiently as it could be.
I wonder do you mind if we go on a ride through? I'm going to face some trauma here and go way back to some offices I may have worked in where there was paper. And I'm wondering if you're open to going on a trip with me through those different types of paper stacks and maybe helping me remember some.
Sure.
And tell me what you would do, right?
Sure.
So I'm thinking of the number one place that I would see paper in the office would be, it had to do with deliveries that were completed. So what would happen is our intake team would get these orders ready to go. They would print and put them on dispatch tables. And then our drivers would take out these paper delivery tickets, and they would come back hand sign. And then that stuff, and all of it supported it too. So we're not just talking about a delivery ticket. We've got a delivery ticket, and then you've got maybe 20 pages of stuff.
Yeah, a packet.
And so my first nightmare was I walk in and there's like all these packets just stacked up all over the place. And I know that shouldn't really be a thing anymore. So what are our options if we were a provider looking to reduce the volume of paper tickets? What kind of stuff is out there today?
Yes, several different products, some of them within more bolt-ons, if you will, to some of the more widely used business operating systems that allow mobile delivery management, which not only is from a paper perspective manages the delivery type, but a lot of the electronic signatures available for the other pieces of paper, the assignment of benefits, so any other Medicare type required compliance documents. And some of those tools also for multiple functions, right? They're not just the paper management, but they're routing optimizations. So now, if we want to go off on a tangent a little bit, we don't just help the paper delivery, but we don't help a map, right? For inefficiencies for the delivery process in and of itself.
Nice. You're right. Yeah. So not only do we get rid of the paper coming back, that whole table I was talking about where we're trying to optimize, figure out who's where and what, that's handled by these programs as well.
Yeah. So we're not, so it's so multifaceted, right? They're not printing packets and potentially not getting the right documents in a packet and therefore not having the patient sign a particular document and therefore having a compliance problem, which therefore in an audit might compromise some collectibility. So there's a tremendous downstream, there's a sort of hub and spoke approach to this, but tremendous downstream impacts to starting with I have to print these things. So I print the packets, I print the delivery tickets, everything gets signed, fuck that. And they get lost, or they fall under the wheel of the truck. Or they get steps on, the lunch gets spilled on them, and the mobile delivery management process. And those come in some of it's related specifically to the physical delivery via truck and all the routing capabilities. And then there's some other this document related tools that are widely available within many of the business operating systems as well.
Nice. Love it. And I think most software systems I can think of have, like you said, you can get ones that are bolt on. And then every software I could think of has actually their own version or they have a preferred partner. And if I remember correctly, it's not that hard to get it set up and running. It's not a painful implementation.
They're not. I've been directly involved in a number of them, and they're not. Truthfully, they're very plug and play. And truthfully, today, they mirror so much of any kind of document type process you might do on a personal level. For many of us today, whether we're going through a mortgage application or we're going through some other type of signature type documents, we're very used to that now from a technology standpoint. And this process also makes it very easy for other demographic groups to manage the signature process and the technology from a tablet mapping. While we're all using those tools on a personal level. So from an adoption standpoint, from a provider, we're trying to train their teams to use these tools. They're very much plug and play, and they really do narrow many of the other tools that we use in our personal lives today from a technological standpoint.
So if I, the provider, was confident, if I were confident in my intake process, in other words, if I were confident that I had processes in place that made sure that everything that was required was in order before I delivered. And then on the back end, I used some sort of mobile delivery management system that made sure I got everything I needed on the back end. Would that open me up to where I would be able to apply maybe order confirmation automation a little more comfortably?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it reduces, because of that automation, there are things that the automation that I know does in terms of, not letting you go past a certain point. If there's a checklist of 5 documents, the person who's managing that function or having the patient sign the documents, it's a very prompted type of, okay, you cannot go through past this step unless you've completed all these steps. So that makes it reduces the errors, mitigates the errors that could occur as it becomes a lot more repetitive. And so therefore, we would expect that by the time we get to that point, that literally the order as it's now delivered and status as such in the software literally should require maybe a minimal cursory review before it is allowed to be confirmed. And I will tell you that having been on this revenue cycle management process my entire career, when the concept of auto confirmation first started coming into the conversation, I was just like, no, let's just get
You and me both.
this is just not, I don't think I could ever get there. And when you tie that in with some of these other, I got there, by the way, very quickly by necessity, but also by belief in the fact that, of course, and I talk about the reimbursement landscape, and we have to find efficiencies. We have to lower the cost to collect and process things. So it made sense. And then when you start putting all these other checks and balances in place, it's like, sure, by the time it gets to that order confirmation, what is it that we're really looking for? It's the order's been through several hands at the intake level. It's now been through this essentially automated delivery process. So I not have access to 6 documents and look for signatures and dates. So because the software or the products that we use during that auto delivery process didn't let us get past a certain point. So I have full confidence, and really not to mention the fact that from a revenue leakage standpoint, I could deliver a product, and in the days prior to these tools, if now there's a missing signature or on one document, or if there was a date in the signature and those, I'm either now having to go back and redo this process all over again, which is very costly, or I'm saying, you know what, for the $20 pay, I'm not going to bother. I think it's improved the ability to get clean claims and minimize revenue leakage.
You can, there's no chance that you're going to misread a serial number that was typed wrong. Like when you're, there's so many other benefits that I'm just thinking of as you're talking. Things I've heard people complain about as recently as last week. So nice. I love it. So that's one sort of pool of paperwork that we don't want to swim in. I want to move on to my next one. So I don't even know how to say it other than
let me guess. Right.
Just the mail. What's in the mail, Melissa?
Let's hope it's Monday, but most of that's electronic nowadays. So what's in the mail? So what's in the mail are some documents that were not part of that. So like an assignment of benefits, something that was not part of that electronic signature process. And now we have to mail it to somebody, and it comes back in the mail, and somebody signs it. Just there could be a number of reasons for that. So there's lots of correspondence from insurance companies. I say audit requests, medical records requests that come in the mail. And I experienced that very recently where there was a lot of that. So it was stuff that comes in the mail, and then you have to figure out, I'm not putting it as the files have it anymore.
What do I do with this?
I need to put that in a workflow so that it gets addressed, attended to, and there's some level to the extent possible accountability that what had to be attended to and worked gets worked. And most of the business for today has some really great workflow management tools around managing documents and assigning them and putting them in batches and tracking what's done with them. I think as much today, certainly not a lot of documents come inside the fax, but the fax in and of itself still becomes somewhat burdensome, even though the documents are coming in electronically. Product fax, because that's where I say they need still.
Oh, that's another one I want to talk about too. That's bucket 3. So back on bucket 2, which is mail. So we've got our correspondence in there, and you had a perfect point. Like what I used to do, anything that was paper was a hot potato. And your whole job as the person that touched that paper was to turn it into a digitized something as quickly as possible. And for example, like if it was correspondence, we went ahead and logged that in the system. And when I say logged it, we go ahead and post it as a denial or something that kicks off the task. But that is something I've seen so many people just be okay with continuing to process these massive volume of paper that's coming into us from the post office. And there's definitely a way to dig in and start cutting down on that paper, right? It's not, do you have any tips or tricks or things that you would do to dig into that paper and start getting rid of it?
A lot of it is just based on looking at, okay, why are we getting it? And should we mitigate some of this just by looking at and going in a different direction here? But how do we mitigate it by determining what it is? And we correct a process that caused us to receive it in the first place. Are we making errors somewhere that now we're getting correspondence because we send the medical records with whatever we were supposed to send it with, or
Wrong address, or
whereas
you didn't send this. I'm thinking of all the letters right now. Or we need you to send the medical records under the cover of this
yes,
cover sheet.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
There's
yes.
that. I would say if it's EOBs stuff, like it's 2022. So if I see a bunch of EOBs and checks and just $0 EOBs, I would say we should be able to dive into that and try to
Yeah,
get
absolutely. Yeah, had
signed up for ERAs.
Yeah, yeah. So I would hope that, and certainly I know there are providers out there that are still struggling with these things, but that is such a simple looking at what electronic options there are. And even if it's not, usually you can either do electronic funds transfer and remittance advice, or one of the other, at least start down the path of examining what other electronic options are available to mitigate the receipt of that information. Utilizing portals to access that information and try to eliminate or alerts coming from the providers to eliminate some of the paper having to come to the office. Clearly, it still exists, but we hope that providers will be looking at it as a quick win when it comes to point of data correspondence.
That made me think of one thing. So this is an area where, when I was still actively managing, say, billing and collections, Melissa, it would be like my team would be like, yeah, we can't get ERAs for that payer. And I would say, hold on, like maybe not through the clearinghouse that's specifically contracted with your provider, but all of those have the ability to bring in ERAs from other sources. So
Yes.
I want to call that out because I never take no for an answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just went to talk to a provider about something similar. Just because it may not appear, there are conversion to 837 conversion tools, buzz conversion tools,
Screen scrape. There's tons of things.
there's lockbox. A lot of providers still look at the option of even doing a lockbox. So from an efficiency standpoint,
You're right.
Unenveloping, right?
Yes.
Well, that's an issue in and of itself from a labor cost and in any opportunity to try to present, have you thought about doing a lockbox option? Or because in some cases it really boils down to the patient pay checks or patient pay or patient correspondence, which is a little harder. There are, again, software services and tools to help because that's from a revenue cycle collection standpoint, it have to be on top of this patient collection process for all kinds of reasons today, more so than ever. But that's probably one area that's, aside from these other tools, they're still somewhat based on the demographic, the population, the higher population density that we're dealing with, may still be called demand checks and things. Now, that's a way that a provider can leverage their banking relationship and look for lockbox opportunities where someone else is spending a couple hours at a little bit lower, maybe a little lower labor rates.
Yeah.
To open the envelopes, stamp and process it there.
I love lock boxes. I'm glad you brought those up because I always forget. It makes it, they do everything for you and basically send you a ledger of everything that got deposited and the images. So it's very nice.
And at a minimum, this is a little off the business process topic, but at a minimum, anybody who doesn't have a check stand on their desk today, who one of the blessings responsible for that is really way behind the times, because that's another pretty easy way to manage lists from a check processing standpoint, which is part of the mail. There's all kinds of options out there for very inexpensive, good return on investment approaches to managing those things.
Now you started going down a path of faxes, which you said are not paper, but I actually consider them paper because it is, right? Still, you have to take that image. Somebody has to pick it up and figure out what to do with
It
it.
has to go somewhere.
And it's like dealing with paper, right? All of the faxes and stuff that are coming in electronically.
Unless you're using an electronic fax system, kind of like it was the one where it just comes in and it shows up on your desktop's PDF. But if you're getting a physical piece of paper in your hand, that's an opportunity for it to get lost.
Where it's not, but it's not much better. So where I'm going with that
is good points as well.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Take it away, Melissa. Tell us what our other options are, because there's something better.
When I started at the beginning of the conversation, you went to the delivery part. I was truthfully thinking about the fax part.
Yeah.
Area where, to your point, when I say paper, I meant the same thing. It's just an electronic version, but in some ways, we're still managing in some ways, because we don't have a lot of OCR recognition yet, or it's in various phases. Some software tools are doing better than others in terms of, but we're really still in some ways managing the inbound with the volume of faxes like we did when they were paper. And I say that because without some sort of document recognition, when we look at a particular software and these faxes just land in there and it's a fax number that it came from, and unless it has some sort of barcode, which you don't get when you get a brand new referral, that's not barcoded in a way that you can read it, we're still opening it, trying to figure out what it is, flipping through the pages, sorting the pages, albeit it is electronic, so it may be a little more measurable, it may be a little more accountable, it may be a little more efficient, but it's not quite where it could be, given that there is some more sophistication available, some other tools available, I think, with OCR recognition. And there are some other software platforms now that are allowing electronic referrals, but we don't, at least up to this point, I don't know necessarily that there's a high level of adoption in some of the larger companies. I think they see that, but I think there's still lots of opportunity for adoption of these e-referral. Some of them live outside of as ancillary tools. Some live within the software processing itself. I think there's still some work to do on getting it where we can more efficiently manage things like correspondence coming in by fax. So we don't know what it is to open a new intake. We don't know what it is to open it. We got to move it all around, figure out what patient it belongs to, and that still takes some time.
And it sounds absurd because I know when I go to the doctor and they tell me that I need amoxicillin, that I then go to the pharmacy and the amoxicillin is there. And I look at the HME industry or infusion or you name it, and I'm not understanding why can't we get to that point? And you mentioned we've had low adoption of e-referrals. So I sit around and spend way too much time thinking about, Melissa, how we can get our industry to pick one.
Yeah.
And get behind it because it would eliminate so much of that fax mess.
Well, I'll tell you one thing I think, because I just lived it in the recent past, and that is some of that adoption is not as much on the provider. I have to do the providers or the past on those. I don't know the doctors, but the provider, right? It's the provider referral or the referrer that is sometimes difficult to, in my recent past, we were always trying to hand them something on a silver platter with no cost. They have other IT constraints sometimes. They have other legal constraints. They have, okay, this is something else I have to log into to do something else just to get you what, and I could just take the papers and stick them in the backstage file. What they don't realize sometimes is how inefficient it is for us to process it when they do it that way. And it helps us help them when they adopt these other types of technologies. And what I really saw up close and personal was the positioning of it, right? So it's like we're trying to sell them something instead of partner on a solution and a tool that helps them. And so I spent a lot of time working with sales teams and other groups within the organization I was managing to say, if we position it differently, and we really show them
The value to the patient.
the sooner we get it in and after it is processed, the sooner patients will get what they need. To your point about when you go to the doctor and they prescribe something, you go to the pharmacy, it's already there. Even though the delivery model is slightly different, we can still get there from a process standpoint.
Yes.
So the tools are there. Everybody knows these are the right things to do. I think sometimes it's do we have the right people doing it? First of all, in our case, and nothing on sale. I just think that it needed to be an operational partnership, ops to ops, in the DME provider versus the medical provider, not necessarily sales.
Maybe even bigger than that, to where it's an industry conversation about this interoperability, because we don't have it.
Yeah, totally. And to your point, it is a little bit disjointed in the sense that there are commercials available with sort of bolt-ons now, and then the software, some have their own, and so what integrates with what. And so to your point, there's just not a common interoperability that, we're finding over here on these, this tool, and I think the providers sometimes struggle with sort of use the one that's embedded inside my software because
they don't know. It is confusing. I can't imagine how confusing it must be on their side.
Yeah, yeah. Or why sometimes there's two schools of thought. Some of the DME providers don't want to be so embedded with one rule. They want to spread that around a little bit so that, because some of the tools I'm aware of that live outside are a little bit more so agile, or if a provider was using maybe had different types of services. Maybe they do some respiratory services and they do some DME, and they're running two different type of software or business platform. Then some of it, what's outside, it's their predominant business platform, is more agile because you're using a different type of product that will fit in with any of those.
Makes sense. But I think that we've come up with at least, I don't know, 3 solid buckets or places where we can look at things and try to get rid of paper, which is my worst nightmare. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is so revealing. I want to go get rid of paper, and I don't even have that much paper. But, yeah.
Next, we want to get rid of spreadsheets. So paper first.
Oh boy.
And then maybe next we can talk about how to get rid of spreadsheets.
We're killing all the sacred cows.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I love it. Again, thank you, Melissa, so much for coming on and talking with us today. Where can people find you, follow you, ask you questions, all that good stuff?
Yeah, sure. As always, I appreciate the opportunity. Enjoy the conversation. Yeah, so they can find me through my email. Soon I'll go that I have some LinkedIn, and I have it today, but I will definitely get that set up so that people can reach me at melissaw@HME.com.
Very cool. All right. Again, thank you everyone for listening today. Please remember to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. That really helps us to get noticed by other folks in the healthcare space and grow this podcast and have more exciting guests. If you have any questions about the show, you can email me at chuckellis@prochant.com, or you can find me or Rachel on the old LinkedIn. So on behalf of ourselves and the rest of the team here at ProChant, we thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time on the next episode of the Modern Healthcare Back Office. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Modern Healthcare Back Office, a presentation of ProChant, a wholly owned revenue cycle management service dedicated to serving HME, pharmacy, infusion, and other healthcare providers. Learn more about us at prochant.com.